Welcome to The Art of Medicine, the program that explores the arts, business, and clinical aspects of the practice of medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Wilner. I've planned a great program for today, but first, a word from our sponsor, locumstory.com. Locumstory.com is a free, unbiased educational resource about locum tenens. It's not an agency. Locum Story answers your questions on their website, podcast, webinars, videos, and they even have a Locums 101 crash course. Learn about locums and get insights from real-life physicians, PAs, and NPs at locumstory.com. And now to my guest. Today, my guest is Ray Hartgen, a writer and musician. Ray is also a cancer survivor and the author of the book Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, a patient memoir and fundraiser for the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. Ray's going to speak with us today about his approach to health challenges. Ray, welcome to the Art of Medicine.
Dr. Wilmer, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ray, I think your experience, you didn't just have it, but you thought about it and you wrote a book about it. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about your background. It's like you were minding your own business until you got sick, right? So
Yeah.
what was the setup? What were
Yeah,
you doing?
minding my own business, I think was, it's kind of like the right way of saying it. It's just, living my life in a little bubble. I had good health. I was an avid road cyclist, and I metricized my workouts. And my workouts as a 54-year-old were every bit as strong and powerful as they had been the previous 5 years. So I was feeling pretty good and I still felt good when I had a routine blood test that popped up a anemic score. My hemoglobin was a little low, and we didn't know why. So we wanted, first of all, confirm that test. And so we did another blood test, which did confirm it. And then it's like, well, okay, let's try to get to the root cause of this. Could be a bunch of causes for it. Turned out after, more and more sophisticated blood tests, and a very uncomfortable bone marrow biopsy, it was determined that 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous with a blood cancer called multiple myeloma. So one of the messages that I have for the audience out there is, you know, definitely go see your physician at least once a year, and as part of that, get a routine blood test. I was feeling good. Now, in hindsight, Dr. Wilner, I could see that maybe I was a bit fatigued, but give me a break. I was 54 years old, a full-time job, married with two children in expensive private universities. Now, I had every right to feel just a little fatigued, right? But I felt great. Yet at the same time, 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous. So, it's those the silent things kind of come up and sneak up on you. And I consider 90% of my bone marrow to be an early catch. It had not leached into my bones yet. So when I started treatment, I didn't have to worry about radiation treatment and the like. I could just get started with kind of like the routine induction treatment for multiple myeloma.
So there is a treatment.
There is a treatment. It's an incurable disease, but there is a treatment. When I was first diagnosed, they said, "Hey, Ray, we're going to get you on an induction treatment, a couple of immunotherapy drugs, try to, maybe we just get the multiple myeloma under control at that point in time. But if not, it's going to lead into a stem cell transplant, and that would probably be, after 3 to 6 months of an induction therapy." And, Dr. Wilner, I was going to be an overachiever. I was like 3 to 6 months for a stem cell transplant. I'm going to do it in 3 months. And, so I set off to be the best cancer patient ever. I knew that the stem cell transplant was going to take it out of me physically. So I'm like, all right, what can I do about my physical conditioning, my nutrition? I'm going to attack this. For all that diagnosis process, I'd been sort of like a punching bag, lots of blood tests. I hate needles. The bone marrow biopsy, it was like I was just taking a bunch of punches, and I was kind of relieved to get a diagnosis finally. So, all right, now I can get back in the ring. I can start swinging. I can start punching, and, maybe I can fight as opposed to just feeling like a victim all the time. So I'm attacking my multiple myeloma, the best way I knew how, physically and through nutrition. And that led me to 10, 11 days later. I'm sitting at a restaurant with my son and my wife, and I am exhausted, Dr. Wilner. I can't even read the menu. It's a P.F. Chang's menu. It's a P.F.
Oh
Chang's
yeah.
restaurant. So an
Yeah.
extensive menu, but I'm sitting there, I'm just exhausted. And I don't know why. And I'm thinking, it kind of like dawned on me. I think I knew it. Of course I knew it subconsciously and all, but I kind of considered my physical being to be my health. And it was that night that I recognized that, my entire being, my whole patient consisted of other things other than my physical being. There's my mental being, my emotional being, my spiritual well-being as well. And as a musician, I'm familiar with, mixing boards, being a guitar player, it's more and more guitar, less and less bass or something like that, or more treble, or for a brighter sound or what have you. And so I recognized at that moment, I was able to articulate in my head, said, Ray, you're focused so much on your physical well-being that maybe you're not tending to your emotional and your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being. And when those levels are low, it can drag down what could be a strength. But I also realized at the same time, those strengths can pull up those weaker levels. So, it kind of dawned on me at that restaurant, Dr. Wilner, that, I was more of my being was more than just my physical being, that it consisted of other things. And so after that, I started examining, I learned something about myself in this process. What else could I learn about myself? What else could I learn about my treatment, my fight against cancer, my journey with cancer, if I had a growth mindset and approached this with a growth mindset, a beginner's attitude, and an attitude of discovery.
Now, did you go through with the stem cell transplant?
I did. It's funny when I spoke to a specialist about it. I said, I'm ready. Let's do it in like 3 months. And she said, what's the hurry? It's like you might not need a stem cell transplant at all. Let's see if we can, address it with something else. It turned out I did need a stem cell transplant, so I underwent that process in October and November of 2019. My second birthday is what they call the day they reintroduced the stem cells to my body. That's November 5th. So I recently celebrated my sixth second birthday, and a complete reboot of my immune system. The stem cell, it was a tough process to go through. A lot of chemotherapy that really just wiped out my entire bone marrow, and as much cancer as it possibly could. And then the stem cells were reintroduced to my body to build more bone marrow, and to create basically a new immune system. I had to go through pediatric vaccinations,
Ah,
as
right,
part of my
right.
recovery. Yeah.
And you're still on some kind of maintenance treatment, or that's
Yeah.
all behind you?
Yeah, no, I'm still on treatment. I'm on my third line of treatment, as treatment's the efficacy wanes. So I go in for chemotherapy 3 weeks out of four for one day, and with that, one day I get two treatments. The other 2 days I just get one treatment, and yeah, trying to keep it as bay. It's there's with the multiple myeloma community, it's kind of a like these 3-year little marks. It's like, let's work on the treatment, stay on the treatment. Hopefully it's efficient and effective, and then by the time you need a new treatment, there's a new advancement in the science. And, the big hope right now is for CAR T cell therapies, for blood cancers like multiple myeloma, lymphoma, and others. And so, maybe that's a treatment for me down the road.
I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, where I'm a professor of neurology at the University of Tennessee, but right around the block is St. Jude.
Yeah.
So I know that they do many treatments along these lines for children. Well, so you've decided to kind of, if I can paraphrase, lean into it
Mhm.
rather than it's like, okay, this is what I got. I'm going to learn everything I can about it and do what needs to be done, even though I may not even get rid of it, right? Just got to deal with it.
Yeah, there's choices that, as patients we all make as humans about, everything that we come across, these just forks in the road. There's decisions to be made, and, what you need to do. And, soon after my diagnosis, within a week or two, I went to my first ever group meeting. It was a patient support group, patients with a variety of cancers, and those, brave cancer fighters, kind of taught me what it's like to be a cancer patient, and when I needed help, when I needed a helping hand, they were there to reach back and, pull me forward to where I wanted to be, to where I needed to be. And, it was at that moment when I decided, I want to be like them. They're role models for me. When I'm feeling good and I'm feeling strong, I want to be there for the community to be able to help anybody who might need it, whether it's a patient, a caregiver, ally, or whatever. Let me help you get to where you need to be because I know there's going to be times when I need your help. And one thing that cancer has taught me, Dr. Wilner, is that, I am stronger than I know. And I like to tell people, you are stronger than you know. But together, collectively, we're even stronger still, right? So, I want it to be an asset and a resource to the community. And, I ended up writing a book about my journey, my fight. And it was because through social media, I had the privilege of being of participating in some videos and some media coverage about my diagnosis. And so people were reaching out to me on social media, and it's awesome. That people, consider me to be a safe space that they can share with me. But I got to thinking, when I have these conversations there and this engagement, it's a one-to-one. How can I
Right.
scale it to make it a one-to-many? And I thought, well, I'm a writer. How about if I write a book about it? And it's been the honor of my life. Through the book, I've engaged with patients from around the world, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, of all places, throughout the UK, the United States. And in addition to, sharing my life with my wife of 31 years and raising two children, engaging with these communities of patients and caregivers, it's an honor of my life. It's been super cool.
On this program, I interviewed a woman who's a speech language pathologist, I think in Saudi Arabia, if I remember correctly, and she had breast cancer, and she wrote about that. And she emphasized, first of all, how miserable it was, that you could not overstate how miserable it was getting chemotherapy and feeling tired. This was a previously very productive, energetic person who now, can barely get out of bed on the treatment days. And she even modified her schedule so that she could continue to work, by having, I think, her treatments on the weekend or having them on Friday. So she'd have all the weekend, to recover so she could actually keep going. But she emphasized that it was her friends, her colleagues that really helped her, that gave her the support that she needed to get through it. That it was not fun, and it was difficult, but that it was something that could be done.
Yeah, and support groups are I think critical for patients. Whether it's a formal support group or you go to meet, or if it's just friends, family, people in the network that come by and let you feel as though you're in the fight with them, right? That they're alongside you. And sometimes it's just sitting next to you on the couch watching a football game or something like that. It doesn't have to be something elaborate. And I think, and I've been told from people who have been both patients and caregivers, that sometimes the caregiver is the more difficult role, right? So, not only do patients need support, but caregivers need support too. It's I liken it to when my wife was going through childbirth. It was extraordinarily uncomfortable for her, but for me as well. I didn't know, how much she had, and where was she, related to her limits. And here it is, someone I love and care for, and she's feeling uncomfortable. That made me feel uncomfortable, and I know it's weird, particularly for women who are in the audience who are listening or watching, and so what does this guy know about childbirth? But it's that that mental anguish, that I faced, and it's something that caregivers face, on a regular basis. So, those people are important, and support, for caregivers, support for patients. And that's why, it's very important for the ally community. You might not be directly involved, but you can be. And your support is just, it means the world for those two communities.
Yeah, I would second that. Caregivers are often overlooked. In fact, when I see patients in the hospital, and most of the ones I see are pretty sick, there aren't always family members, but sometimes there are family members who come to see the patient, and I'll thank them for coming because they have lives, right? They were supposed to be going to work, or they were supposed to be, fixing the house, and the next thing you know, the wife or the cousin or the mother is sick, and there they are spending the whole day in the hospital, for 5 minutes with the doctor, and they're terrified, and they don't know what's going on, and it's hard for them, but they want to be there. So then they're often overlooked because all the focus is on the patient. But I'll thank them because I think their presence is, if not curative, it's at least supportive to the patient that they're just there. So I thank them for that.
Yeah.
And it's a sacrifice. I mean, of their own whatever whatever they were doing got totally derailed by this car accident, and now they're spending all day in the hospital. So I think caregivers do need more attention.
And
Uh,
it's uncomfortable for almost everybody, right? It's sort of like, you almost have to have a first responder mindset, right? Not everybody can be a first responder, and it's difficult to, I speak a lot of times with patient communities. I hear things such as after a diagnosis, you find out who your friends are. And it pains me to kind of hear that, right? It's I know what happens. There's a person in one of my support groups, her husband left her. Just he wasn't comfortable. He did not want to go along for the ride. And it's things like that happen. But I do feel for the most part, these friends that you do have, they're in your life for a reason. You care about each other, you love and support one another. But so often when someone's facing with a critical health issue, a chronic illness, or what have you just don't know what to say, and you don't know what to say, so you just don't say anything today, and then today leads into tomorrow, tomorrow leads into the next week, and next thing you know, there's this space that's developed, and then it's like, now I really don't know what to say because it's been a couple of months, I'm ashamed of myself, so I try to encourage people, start there, just fess up, whether you're the patient, whether you're the friend, family member, just, hey, Dr. Wilner, I don't know what to say, but I love you. I care for you. And I'm hoping that you and I can just get through this difficult conversation for another 30 seconds or so. And then I can figure out the best way I can to support you on this, And so, that support is just critical. I just wanted to stress that those of you out there, somebody, if you don't know what to say, start there. I don't know what to say, and have those conversations. Don't let those relationships that are in your life for a reason to begin, in the first place. Don't let them, get space in between them and erode and end up going away.
One topic I want to get to, and I addressed this in another episode with Renee Fleming, the opera star. She edited a book called Music and Mind. And the whole concept of the book was written by experts, from all over the world, is what do we know about how the brain processes music, and what do we know about how music can help with healing? And since you're a musician, I wanted to ask you whether music played any role in your attitude or your recovery, or did you consciously use it in any way to sort of get you through this?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Music is, for me, it's more than just a coping strategy. I mean, as humans, we all need some sort of coping strategy, whether it's journaling, walking along the beach at sunset, or what have you. There's just so much noise in the world. You need to cope, and picking up a guitar for me, and writing music, playing music is a coping strategy for sure. But it's also a storytelling capability as well, and there are also goals associated, with it. It's like I want to get back to performing, with my partner Scott in our band, and having that little kind of carrot dangle in front of you. It's like that's here I am, losing weight. I'm bald. I'm going through chemotherapy, stem cell treatment, but there's something ahead. We can get back to the wineries and the breweries and the clubs, and playing something that we enjoy doing. So for me, it was multifaceted. It's a kind of a music as a coping strategy, music as a carrot dangling in front of me for, goals and objectives and things that I wanted to do, and also as a storytelling mechanism to write music. It's still in the process of kind of, cataloging my, fight with multiple myeloma, my journey through, a sequence of songs. Something that I've delayed. Yeah, I started, and it's been starts and stops, but that I have kind of recommitted myself to for the last couple of months of whether it's going to be an EP or LP or maybe nothing. Maybe it's just something for myself. But telling the story of my trials and tribulations, to be overly dramatic, of dealing with cancer.
Now, you're a nonfiction writer primarily. and I see the books behind you is Indy 500, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma we talked about. And now there's one, if I recall, about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
There is.
And but I see another one, Outflanked, and that is not a nonfiction book. Too many negatives there. It's a fiction book, right?
Yeah.
So that's your first fiction. How did that happen?
It's there's kind of a long story, so I hope I can tell it. As I talked about approaching multiple myeloma with a growth mindset. Once I came across that epiphany that my whole being was more than just my physical being, I was like, what else can I learn? So, Dr. Wilmer, I went back to an exercise that I facilitated in my professional career for hundreds of people. It was part of a time management course, and it's a timeline exercise. And a timeline exercise that I'd like to really run through very quickly with you in the audience right now. And that is, if you have something to write with and a piece of paper, that's great, but you don't need
I'm
one.
ready. I'm
You
ready.
can do it mentally as well out there in the audience. It's pretty simple. You just draw a horizontal line from left to right. And then on the left-hand side, a little vertical tick mark, and the right-hand side at the end of it, that line, make a little vertical tick mark. So you have a segment. And then underneath the left-hand tick mark, you write the letter B, and that's going to, represent your birth. And since you guys are all so much smarter than me, you already know what the right-hand side is. Right-hand side, put a little letter D, that represents your death. Right there's your timeline. And then, the introspective part of it, the powerful part of it is, we all know intellectually that, tomorrow's not promised and the rest of the day is not promised. So where do you believe you are? Where do you think you are on your timeline on the planet, right? And for years, Dr. Wilner, I would just kind of haphazardly just put my mark right in the middle. So I was going to live forever. And if it wasn't forever, it's going to be at least be 100, and so, I revisited this exercise after my diagnosis, and I thought, man, if I'm being intellectually honest with myself, my tick mark is not in the middle. It's a little further to the right than it was previously. So what does that mean? What does that mean to me? And so I looked at it and I thought, not unlike a lot of human beings, I think that I've been guilty for far too long of taking time for granted. I would always take next days for granted, next weeks, next months. I was one of those guys that, one day, Dr. Wilner, I'm going to ... right? And sometimes, depending on the conversation, the topic, that might be decades of time taken for granted. So, I looked at that one more time and said, okay, you take time for granted. How does it manifest itself in your life? Well, for me, it was readily apparent. Because I took time for granted, I took people and relationships for granted. If I took tomorrow for granted, and I'm thinking of, say, you, Dr. Wilner, it's like, this is my friend, Dr. Wilner. Oh, I'll just reach out to him tomorrow. I mean, he'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into next week and so forth. Right. So immediately I wanted to snap my head around this. Is like, what can I do to change this? What is most important to me? What is of most value to me? And who are the people that are most valuable to me that I love the most? And being a musician, always looking for a pithy little saying to put on the back of a t-shirt, band logo on the front, pithy saying on the back. Maybe we can sell a t-shirt for $20 and make a little bit more money out of the gig, right? So a motto came up: if not now, when? And so then to get to the point of your question, Dr. Wilner, a friend of mine, his name is Tom Olenek. He's not a writer. He's a biotech executive, but he is a Yinzer, a guy from the city of Pittsburgh. And, for decades, he had this idea for a book. In his mind, his thesis was that when the city of Pittsburgh had to undergo a very painful deindustrialization transformation, they needed their heroes, and they got their heroes in a kind of an unlikely form, and that is a professional football team, which up to 1972 had been pretty mediocre. And that was being kind. They've been bad for the 39 years of their existence. And so, he looked at the city of Pittsburgh now, which is considered this new economy success story, compared it to its Rust Belt cousins like Detroit and Cleveland and Buffalo. It's like, they're still struggling with, coming up into the new economy. In his mind, the Steelers saved Pittsburgh. And he talked about it for decades, with me personally for about 15 years. So I grabbed him by the shoulders one day, using my new motto, and said, Tom, if not now, when? And so how about I get started? I'm a writer. I get started with the book. And if we should ever veer off your vision, we'll course correct. And 18 months later, there was no course correction necessary. We had this great book that I'm super proud of. It's called Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. And, being a writer, I wanted to write more books. I certainly wanted to write my patient memoir. I passionate about motorsports and Indy 500 because of a book I read when I was a kid called The Indy 500, 30 Days in May. And I wanted to write a book like that. And so I had this success with nonfiction books and just wanting to challenge myself as a storyteller. I was like, I wonder if I could write a fiction book, write a novel. And that my debut novel came out in the end of October 2025. It's called Outflanked. It's a espionage thriller. I'm hoping that readers consider it to be a thriller because it says an espionage thriller as a subtitle. It would be embarrassing if it's there as a subtitle and it's not very thrilling. But the reviews so far have been positive, so positive that it's encouraged me to write a second novel. So I've started that, and looking forward to continuing to work on it and get that out to readers as well.
Well, that's exciting. And your books are on your website and Amazon. What's your website again?
My website is my name. It's Ray Hartgen, RayHartgen.com. Also, I do want to just share with the listeners and viewers, if you ever want to reach out to me, particularly if you're a myeloma patient or if you are a patient caregiver ally, you can reach me anywhere. My email address is my name at gmail.com. You can reach me through my website and on social media platforms. My name is my handle. So, it's like I said, engaging patients from around the world honor of my life. There's a man recently, he sent me a direct message on Instagram, a recently diagnosed myeloma patient who was scared, but he didn't feel comfortable talking about his fear with his wife or his children. But he felt comfortable coming to me. Such an honor, Dr. Wilner, that someone would consider my space to be a safe space, to share, and then to get to a point where now he can talk with his wife and his children about what his fears are. It's just if I can do that for anybody out there in the audience, please reach out to me. I love hearing your stories, and like I said earlier, together we are stronger than we are individually.
Ray, this has been fascinating. Just to wrap up, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I've said it. A lot of times I'll appear on a podcast and people say, what do you have, any words of advice for people? And it's like, I don't know if I have words to advice other than the fact that, I do want you to know that you are stronger than you know. When everyone's faced with challenges, obstacles, adversity, just know that until you're tested, you don't know how strong you are. But you are strong out there, and more importantly, together as a community, we're even stronger. If you need help, please feel free to reach out to somebody. There's a lot of organizations out there. There's a lot of individuals. If you need a little bit of help, don't shy away from being that person that asks for a little bit of help. There are people out there that can help you. At the same time, when people reach out to you for help and you're capable, pull them alongside you as well. We all get something, Dr. Wilner. You know that as well as everybody else. We all get something, and none of us are getting out of this alive. But it takes a village. All those cliches, but just know, together we are strong.
Ray Harchin, thanks for joining me on The Art of Medicine.
I appreciate it, Dr. Wilner. I love what you do with the show, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
And now a final thanks to our sponsor, locumstory.com. Locumstory.com is a free, unbiased educational resource about locum tenens. It's not an agency. Locum Story exists to answer your questions about the how-tos of locums on their website, podcast, webinars, and videos. They even have a Locums 101 crash course. At locumstory.com, you can discover if locum tenens make sense for you and your career goals. What makes locumstory.com unique is that it's a peer-to-peer platform with real physicians sharing their experiences and stories, both the good and bad, about working locum tenens. Hence the name, Locum Story. Locumstory.com is a self-service tool that you can explore at your own pace with no pressure or obligation. It's completely free. Thanks again to locumstory.com for sponsoring this episode of The Art of Medicine. I'm Dr. Andrew Wilner. See you next time. This program is hosted, edited, and produced by Andrew Wilner, MD, FACP, FAAN. Guests receive no financial compensation for their appearance on The Art of Medicine. Andrew Wilner, MD, is a professor of neurology at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis, Tennessee. Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this program belong solely to Dr. Wilner and his guests and not necessarily to their employers, organizations, other group, or individual. While this program intends to be informative, it is meant for entertainment purposes only. The Art of Medicine does not offer professional, financial, legal, or medical advice. Dr. Wilner and his guests assume no responsibility or liability for any damages, financial or otherwise, that arise in connection with consuming this program's content. Thanks for watching. For more episodes of The Art of Medicine, please follow on YouTube or your favorite podcast player. Please share with your friends and subscribe. www.andrewwilner.com